welcome to And She Spoke.
Hey, Jenny. I'm excited to do this episode.
Me
really
too.
Excited.
We are calling this episode, Is Your Path to Wealth Blocked?
Yesterday, there was a few conversations in Slack and I got really angry and I started messaging you like, we need to do a podcast about this. And so that is where this came from. So let me explain what I witnessed yesterday. I'm not going to give you all the details, but basically it's like women are focused on the wrong metrics. And I am afraid that if we stay focused on those wrong metrics, that we are not going to be able to see the impact and the change in the world with women building businesses because they're focused on the wrong things.
Yeah, my favorite topic that we talk about on this show is kind of money, like women, money and power.
We need to do more.
We need to do more because it's this huge driving force in all of our lives, whether we want to admit it or not. And you started slacking me. I was driving to go to the library and not driving. I was in the passenger seat and I was like, just like we were Slack messaging each other, like
angry
feminist activist Slack messages about this. And so we decided it was important to do a podcast. So yeah, I think it's really important to talk about. So why don't you share with our listeners a little bit about what you were messaging me?
So I think like what I was witnessing was a woman who was worried about $60. And I was like, why is she worried about $60? Like, who cares about $60? In the time that you worried about $60 and expressed your thoughts about the $60, you could have made 1,000 or many thousand or 100 or whatever. But I think what I'm seeing is that women are taught to keep expenses low. And men are taught to grow, to sell, to generate wealth.
To expand. That's the word you texted to me. Yeah.
Women are taught to like shrink and men are taught to expand. I think that's what I slacked you. And I'm mad and I'm frustrated. And then I started down this many rabbit holes last night about the history of women and how we were taught and our sort of, financial literacy, although so often that it applies to like, how do you like invest in, it's like sort of day-to-day, like personal finances versus business and thinking big and understanding your numbers in your business. So then I realized I found this great Guardian article, which we'll go through in a second. I definitely think it's worth a read. So we'll put the link in the show notes. But I realized like women have been like literally financially incapacitated for thousands of years. Men have thousands of years head start on us. And then I got even angrier. And so I thought it might be helpful to go through some of the history of what women couldn't do and now or just recently are able to do, because I think perspective is everything. So I think like, yeah, I'm really angry at how some other women who are thinking this way, but then it's like, it's not really our fault because this is how society has taught us what's important. This is how we have survived. And so I think this little lesson, this history lesson in money and women is super helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that I have personally gone through this transition from thinking about money one way to now thinking about it very differently. And so I think it'd be helpful to kind of share our own journeys. We have an episode just for those of you who are newer to the show. We have an episode that we'll link to in the notes as well from where we shared our own money stories, which I think would be helpful if you want to learn more about kind of how we came to think the way that we do now. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's way back.
Sandy. Way back to Egyptian times. And then I want to talk a little bit about contrast that to how men are socialized. And then I think let's talk about some solutions, how we can kind of break this cycle. And then we can share a little bit about our personal. So, okay. So this Guardian article starts in Egyptian times, which is so fascinating because back in Egyptian era, women and men had equal financial rights, which is so fascinating. I don't really know how they know that. There is a link to another article who has determined this. So I'm curious about that. And then there's lots of different like in betweens, like from Judaism and Muslim and all sorts of religions in different eras and different populations. But really, I want to jump forward to the year 1100 in England, English common law, when coverture came to be. So coverture is the legal status of a married woman, was considered to be her husband's protection and authority, right? So that's when that came into being in the early 1100s. And basically, in that time period, married women could not own property, could not run taverns, stores, or they could not sue in court, whereas widows and spinsters could. So kind of love that. Kind of love that that widows and spinsters could own a tavern back in the 1100s.
I want to know, at what point does someone become a spinster?
When you don't marry and you're probably older than 25 or
Well,
20.
that age is the question. Like, when you're
Yeah.
19, are you a spinster if you're not
Yeah.
married? I mean, that's
Yeah. I
like
think
a
so.
whole
I
other
think it's
podcast.
yeah. No,
That's a
I
thing.
absolutely. But like imagine that as soon as you did marry, you lost your ability to like own property. Like your house is no longer, well, you would never have had a house in the first place. Even with inheritance, like if your father wanted you to give like inheritance to you, you couldn't have it. Like it would go right to the husband. So anyway, I just think that's really interesting. And of course, that English common law came over to North America. And I'm just going to jump, like you can read this article and it goes through all the different, lots of different countries and the different years of what happened. So for example, in France in 1881, France granted women the right to own their own bank account, which US and Canada did not do that till 1960s. Like
That's
that is like,
crazy.
that is like, that and now I'm like, oh, that's what my mom experienced when she tried to get a loan for a car and they wouldn't give it to her without a man. So we couldn't get a loan without a man. We can't own property. We still make less than men, white women, and then it's worse for Black women and Latino women. We also now in our current day, we're like working outside of the home, plus we're taking the second shift, right? So it's just like this is what we've for thousands of years, this is what we have been dealing with. In the United States in 1974, there was an Equal Credit Opportunity Act, which banned, up until then, required single, widowed, or divorced women to bring a man along to co sign any credit application, regardless of income. And even if you did have income, they discounted the value of the wages when considering how much credit to grant by as much as 50%.
Hmm.
In 1976, Irish women were finally able to own their own homes outright. In 1976, and then I love this one, 1982, UK women are allowed to spend their money in English pubs without being refused service.
1982?
Yep.
I mean, to some extent, I imagine these laws were those laws that are kind of on the books but aren't enforced in these ages. So that would be interesting to learn more about, because like I know in the United States there are still some of these like wacko laws in certain jurisdictions that make no sense and no one really follows them, but they're still
Yeah.
officially on the books.
So when we look at that, like how recent it has been that women can actually have their own bank account or have access to a line of credit or take out a loan or own their own home, like it's no wonder that we're a little bit farther behind than men with the ability to own property, to make financial decisions, and even the idea, even the concept of like, I'm going to go build my own wealth. Like that is
Mm-hmm.
not something that as children, as young girls, that we have thought about.
No, I never considered that as a little girl.
But what, and I think this part of this comes up with some of the past episodes with Kelly Deals, that what women are good at is running a household, is saving, is sort of holding on, is being smart with money. It's like budgeting, it's like putting food on the table. I mean, a lot of women, if there was any poverty at play, if there was, single motherhood, like you get really smart with money on how to survive. So look, we never had our own revenue sources. We never had jobs, right? We had only what the husband or father gave us or allowed for us. So I think that we've been taught very naturally through culture to scrimp and to save and to be smart with money and to hoard. My friend Lisa's mom saved, like took money off her. She did some babysitting. She kept a portion of that money and had it in a hidden bank account from her husband so he wouldn't know. Things like that. Like that is what we have. So we're very, very good at holding and focusing on expenses and making things work with what we have. However, I think a bigger problem here is that if you take that attitude and those beliefs, if you don't even know that you're thinking like that and you bring it into business, I think it sets you up for a really hard go.
Yeah. So in your opinion, Sandy, because my take on this is that the skills and the acumen to survive and to scrimp and to save and to sort of like squeeze, honey out of a dewdrop.
Yeah.
I keep coming up with these. Like those are not the same skills that it takes to
No.
thrive and to build wealth and to be
Right.
financially abundant, right? Like, so that's, I think,
Right.
like, it's not like, oh, you're really, really good at scrimping. And then if you do that enough, you become really good at becoming wealthy. It's
No.
not like a linear progression.
No. Right.
Yeah.
No, that's right. I think that is a skill set. And I think it's like survival and safety.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not how you're going to build wealth. So if you're not going to build wealth by keeping your expenses low. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I would argue it's probably the opposite. The more you spend, the more that you're in sort of that money abundant
Mm-hmm.
mindset, and more will be attracted to you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about like men, for literally, now that I've seen this article, thousands of years, they have been owners of property, of money, of women, of slaves. They have been owners. They have white men specifically have it's the culture is built for and by white men, right? So of course it's set
Mm-hmm.
up for them to succeed. They are taught the concept of wealth. They are taught to take risks. They are taught to talk about money, to charge more, to price, accordingly to the financial value, to I don't know, take action to do things. There also, I mean, there's other pressures for them, like to provide, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they have to bring them, their pressure is to provide for the family. So they
Typically.
definitely have typically, yes, they have just a different set of internalized beliefs than what we do. But it's just so different. And I was thinking about, I actually last night I was going through like Good Housekeeping magazines, like from the 70s and the 60s, and like Mademoiselle, and like all of these magazines were all that we were taught through that sort of culture were to be like shiny, soft, and sparkly and clean our homes. It was all ads for soap and products for like pans, like it was all cooking and cleaning and household, right? And it was all about how you look too,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like you're the object for men. You have that, all you're doing is for things for other people, your family, your children, and your partner. And it was like there's nothing of substance about building wealth or taking care of yourself or making yourself happy. It was so fascinating. It's sort of a bit of a tangent, but I was like, and I wish that I don't know what magazines men would have looked at in that era in the
None.
right. And so
No
they
magazine.
would have been like reading the newspaper and
Mm-hmm.
current events and business and stuff like that, where we're learning how to scrub a pot. So anyway, all that to say, I just think first of all, we're not going to judge ourselves, right? It's like this we've honestly, this is it we've come by it honestly, and this is what culture society wanted us to do and be, and it's like the operating system in the background. And
Mm-hmm.
now I just kind of want to undo it and just really talk about women in business. The other thing, Jenny, is like when I was looking at women money and doing all these searches, a lot of it was just like household finances. It was about budgeting, it was
Budgeting.
about saving, and it was still kind of the same message.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
was about and like you watch a lot of that stuff on YouTube.
Oh, I do. Yeah. I mean, I'm around a lot of that. It's fascinating to me that how much of like the financial conversation that's aimed more at women is about budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I also watch all these like dude bro YouTube channels too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like a big YouTube fan. And I watch like they're all about real estate investing.
Yeah,
Like
that's
it's
wealth
like, and
building.
I don't, and they're either about like crypto or real estate investing, and they have like high production quality, and they're like, it's so, it's
Men
so
aren't
over
taught
the
to
top.
budget. You don't
And then you
budget.
watch like these like super mom budget. I mean, I just watch them, like people like how I feed my family of 10 out on $5 a week from Walmart, and they like, people take their phones, their videos into Walmart or wherever, and like video themselves buying, you know, like $20 worth of groceries to feed a giant family. And it's not necessarily that these people have to do that, but that's their content, right? Like their business is built on teaching people how to you know, buy like a dozen eggs for 10 cents, and how it's like, it's it's so annoying, I think, to my husband when I'm watching these things, because like it's like I don't even have like a store like Walmart where I live. Like it's just not relevant to me, but I'm so interested in like, these videos have like 300,000 views too. It's not like nobody's watching. Like these are the super popular videos. And then again, contrast that with like how to build wealth. And it's all these like men nicely dressed, almost always men. It's not always men. I also follow a handful of women who have these YouTube channels, but they are fancy cars. Like they're showing you their house in their neighborhood that they bought, like a third house in Las Vegas as a rental property. Like it is all fast,
Mm-hmm.
like unattainable, I think, for most people. And it's a totally different demographic. So I think that's still very much like this magazines from the 60s, like this kind of thing you're seeing. It has a new way of playing out
Mm-hmm.
now in this era.
Yeah. So yeah, that's so interesting. And like, that's just the perfect demonstration that men are, shown and talking about purchasing properties. And that's not to say that there's not women teaching other women how to build, some
Hardly
wealth in
any
real
though,
estate,
really
but it's
hardly
not the
any.
dominant conversation,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's what I get so mad at, or not mad. I'm just like frustrated. I'm so
Mhm.
frustrated because I think it's so important that women do build their own wealth. And it's like, regardless of what your relationship status is, if you're married or whatever, of a partner, it doesn't matter. Like, for you yourself, you should build your own wealth.
Mhm.
And then whatever happens, like, you're okay. It's like, it is power, it is safety. And it's so shifted, as we talked about so many times, like the power and the money is with a very slim demographic in our society. And that's what you and I are out to change. And I'm just like, you know what, but we don't have the right messages around it. Nobody knows how to build wealth. And so, for the women that do start businesses, we see such low sales and a difficulty trying to get some traction. But I know it's because there's all this background at play. And that when we are focusing on buying the cheapest software platforms and the, free sites all over the place, and it's not to say that we don't need to consider expenses. Of course we do. Of course we need to be smart about how we spend our money. And like you and I, on a one of the bookkeeping, one of the money things that we did, we were talking about how we look at all of our expenses regularly to see, like, do we need all the things that we're paying for? Are there, usually it's software, because we have so many 150,000 million different software things, tools that we use for a business. We'll just like, oh, we don't use that anymore, let's cancel that.
Mhm.
But we're not like platform hopping. Oh, there's a cheaper webinar software, let's like save $10 and go over there. That is a waste of our time. We need to be talking about selling more, are our prices right, taking action, growing, marketing, and not just bottom line numbers.
Well, yeah, I think that this idea of like constantly being focused on like saving a buck comes at a massive opportunity cost, because it's a
Oh,
tremendous
yeah.
amount of like emotional labor and mental energy to be constantly thinking about like budgeting and everything you do, especially in your business. And so you have to calculate like the cost of that time and energy that you're thinking about, like, how do I save $300 this year by, you know, optimizing XYZ? Like, could you not spend that time making 10x or 10, you know, 1000x
Go
what
see
you're
a
trying to
private
save?
client. Go see a
Like,
couple
yeah,
private
go book a
clients.
private
Just done.
client. Right. So I think that like network, go to like a meetup online and network with somebody and get a new client, like figure something else out to do with your time. The other thing that like you're saying that brings up for me, Sandy, is this idea that like we think that the solution to our problems is going to be in a tool or a resource. And, you know, we obviously have spent a lot of time and energy building a tool. You know, we have a company built around a tool, but I'll be the first one to say that like the tool is not the point. The tool is there to hum in the background, to make your life easier, to make it more efficient and effective for you to do what you're doing. The tool is not the panacea, right? The tool is not going to solve your problem. Right. The tool is not going to make you money. Like you and your body of work and your ability to transform people's lives is what's going to make your business functional and make you a lot of money.
The answer is always sell more. Go sell more. That's always the answer.
Or raise your prices. Revenue. Probably also raise your prices.
Yeah. Same result, right? Like just make more. Like that is don't worry about the $60 or the $10 or the $100. Don't worry about it. Like, what are you doing to continue to build those relationships, to continue to grow that body of work? We've been talking a lot about this in the inner circle recently about the concept of like becoming an authority and growing a body of work. That's what you need to be doing. That will pay off 100-fold over, you know, jumping and saving $50 or whatever it is. It's just so infuriating to me.
Yeah. And I also I want to say too, that I see too many people hold back from investing in the paid version of a tool because of the same reason. So I just want to put that out there. If you are on like the free version of something, but then you have to do a lot of manual work behind the scenes to keep using that free version, I guarantee you it's worth the money to upgrade to a paid version. And this is coming from someone who does not offer a free version. So I'm not talking about our own platform in any way, but like if you're on the free version of MailChimp and you're doing all kinds of hocus pocus behind the scenes to make it work, just upgrade. Like just pay for the features.
$13.
There's a robot that can do that for you. It is worth the $10. Like, please, if you take anything away from this, like value your time.
Yeah. And so that is the mental switch. That's another great example that I hadn't even thought of, is like that they stay on free too long. And then they're like, "Ooh, should I upgrade? Just upgrade, pay the $13. Like make it up on the other end times 100, literally." So I think like, I really want these conversations just sort of moving into solution and sort of future and where we can go with this. I really want to normalize conversations around women and money, and that you know, like to talk openly about our frustrations, or like uncovering like, oh crap, I didn't even know I was thinking like that, right? Like you don't even know what you're thinking, like that operating system, what am I saying?
Some subconscious
beliefs, like those are operating in the background, and we need to uncover those and discover them and see if we want to keep them or not. So I think like these conversations around money are super important, focusing on top line revenue, and also any change like what you and I are talking about, helping more women run businesses, build wealth, and just sort of change that, the who has the power in our society. Those societal changes are great, but it all starts with the individual. We have to understand how we're each showing up to our own businesses and where our limitations are.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I hear you.
Okay, those are all my points.
Should we move into Joy and Hustle?
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, I want to make one more point, which I think requires a follow-up podcast episode, which is that as you were messaging me all of these thoughts and we were going back and forth on this episode, what came to mind for me was also like this idea of shrinking versus expansion, is that women have also been taught very much to shrink physically and to not take up physical space. And so I believe there's a relationship between these things. Like, you know, don't spend and don't take up too much space. So I think that there's also like a lot of body image issues like going on here. So I think it's all related. Like be sweet, be sparkly, be quiet, be demure. Don't please spend others. A lot of money. Please people. Don't take up too much space.
Yeah. You know, that just reminded me, another thing I wanted to say was like, women who do buy things are like splurgers and
Mhm.
excessive and ridiculous, you know? So when we do actually go and spend money and not scrimp and save, there is this negative connotation to us, like buying something that we really love and we really want, while the men are out buying Lamborghinis and putting it all over Instagram or whatever, right? And so I was like, that was such an interesting, I can't even remember where I read that, but it's like even when we do go spend, we're still like, everyone now judges us for for splurging.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's totally true. And I think that we need to, in general, sort of move away from shaming people for their decisions to invest in certain things or to make certain financial decisions. Like, you don't know where someone is in their life or what they're doing. And so please just hold off. Like, I think we just need to be a lot more understanding of each other and truly, but there's nothing inherently wrong with spending money. And in the case of your business, there's almost always something inherently right in investing in yourself.
Yes, 100%. Okay, Joy.
Okay, Joy
How
and
about the
Hustle,
joy?
you got the joy. You claimed
Joy.
it.
Okay. So I am obsessed with beekeeping. And I spent the last weekend reading everything I possibly can read about beekeeping, because I want to have in the city, I want to have a hive in my yard, which we're allowed to do here in Calgary. And then my father, who owns a quarter section, he said that we could have bees out there. And
Oh,
I know
he
my sister,
did.
yes, my sister-in-law listens to this podcast. And so she's freaking out right now as she's listening to me say this. And yeah, so anyway, so as I like, okay, I got to know everything. I found this place it's called
Mm.
Flow Hive out of Australia. And so you know, the traditional like beehives, and a big part of the work with beehives is that I can't believe we went from like women and money and scarcity and coupon clipping to beehives, what we are. Part
You're
of the work with beehives,
multidimensional.
that's right. That's right. Is getting the honey, right? So it's usually the upper two boxes are where the honey is stored, and you have to like
Mhm.
remove the frames, and you have to like have all this equipment to sort of use centrifugal force to pull the honey out. It's messy and it's a lot of work. Flow Hive has this thing where you insert a key, turn it, it cracks the wax in the storage honey frames, and it pours out into a tap. And you don't have to disturb the hive, open it up to go get the honey. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm obsessed with that. So if any of you are in a place to look or interested in beekeeping, I would highly suggest going look, just Google Flow Hive, and they have an amazing website. It's like incredible amount of information and forums, and oh, it's so good. So that's my joy. This new
It does look
beehive.
really cool. And
I went through.
I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, you need to have one. And they started on Indiegogo. It was a father son, and they did an Indiegogo. I think they raised like $12 million for this invention they sort of reinvented the beehive.
Hmm.
So okay, hustle.
Well, first, I have to remind you that my high school aptitude test revealed that I should be a beekeeper.
I did not know that.
Did I never tell you that?
That's a thing on a
It
test,
was
a
the thing
result.
I was told that I was most apt to become. And I was horrified because I, at that point, was very much still on my path to become an environmental lawyer, which is what, of course, I ultimately
I
did.
My test showed that should be a funeral director.
That's terrible. I don't even know what to say about that.
Okay.
I saw a link somewhere about, I don't even know what I saw it on today, but I saw a link somewhere that there's like this mortician who's like really killing it on TikTok. We can talk about it later. I don't know why anyone would watch that.
What are
But
they
apparently
doing?
that's a thing.
It's kind
I
of a
don't know.
sensitive
I don't know.
topic.
I saw it somewhere. I didn't
Dancing.
have
They're
time.
probably dancing amongst the
All
coffins,
right.
doing some shuffle dance.
Well, that could have been your life, Sandy. if
Well, I'd
if
rather have
paths
yours.
had if paths had aligned differently. Oh my God. Okay.
All
Well,
right.
I am all in on the hives. Like, I'm gonna live vicariously through you. And when I have energy, I'm also gonna invest in a hive. Okay.
Yeah.
So the hustle, which also could have been a joy, but we're gonna make it a hustle, is this article in the New York Times. Let me see if I have it up, called "Gotta Have That Cute Mug, Act Fast." And it is all about like the cult behavior around like dirt drops. And if you don't know what a dirt drop is, like, go on Instagram and look for it. But basically, there's all these like artisanal potters that have during the pandemic in particular really gotten has seen an explosion in their businesses because people have become obsessed with like handmade things and pottery. And so they do these dirt drops where they build up all of this energy around the fact that they're going to be releasing a new drop of pottery, often mugs. And like, I'm of course participating in all of this. This is like pure bliss for me. And so when I saw it covered in the New York Times, I got really excited.
Is it dirt drop as in like clay is dirt? Is that
Yes.
where the name comes
Yes.
from? Okay. Okay.
Dirt drop.
Sounds like something you would eat.
No,
Like a
you
gumdrop.
don't need a dirt drop. No. So this, but the article's interesting because it's showcasing some of these potters that have been participating and seen their businesses explode in the last year. And I just also think it's a hustle because it's so the business model is so fascinating, right? Because like by nature, this is what's different than online, but by nature, there's only so many of any given piece of pottery that a human being can make within a span of time. And so there's just like things sell out like instantly. And I follow some of these. I have my own potters that I follow. I'm on the email list. Like I'm ready when the dirt drops happen. And I've been able to score a couple of mugs. So I think I've talked about Object Matter before, but Object Matter Ceramics is my favorite. And they're not in this article. But anyway, it's like a whole thing. It's a really fun way to support artists and local businesses, small businesses. And I just think it's such a cool marketing strategy. So if you're an online business owner, it's really interesting to think about like, how can you emulate this in the online space? So obviously launches are one way, but like, how can we tweak launch strategy so that it more closely matches what's going on with these dirt drops? Oh, it's so cool.
That's awesome. So that, you know what, you and I are building out a new course for Inner Circle on memberships. And I think that we can work some of that into the teaching.
Yeah, I totally think so.
Yeah, we'll do it. Okay, awesome, Jenny. Thank you for agreeing to do this angry podcast with me. And I'm not really angry. It's just like in the moment I was angry. It came out of anger. I'm not angry now.
Yeah, it was fun.
Awesome.
Okay. So, folks, if you want to work with us, if you liked what you listened to in this episode and you want to work directly with us and our team, you can apply for our Inner Circle experience. You can go to theinnercircle.works/apply and learn more about our program. And you can also teach online on our platform, Marvelous.
Thanks, everyone. Bye, Jenny.
Bye.